Hi, I'm Chris Warren. I wanted to share a little bit about my workflow that's based on using Photomechanic and Lightroom Classic. The focus of the workflow is the marching arts or other high volume photography. I'm going to focus on what I do, but there may be ways you can adapt what I'm doing for your own purposes. The basic overflow is that before the shoot, you're going to create a tab delimited file that has folder numbers and the group names along with other information like the location. During the shoot, you need to shoot each group to a separate folder on your camera. All of the cameras that I'm aware of have the ability to do this, where you can create a folder with a specific number. The exact name of the folder doesn't matter. It's just the folder number that would matter. For Sony, I put a create folder and a select folder menu option in the My menu on page 1 of my My menu, so that I can quickly get to those options during a shoot to get to the next folder. If you mess up, the most common thing I do wrong is I forget to create a new folder, so I end up with two groups in the same folder. Once I realize that, I just make the next folder number that I should have made, and when I get back, I'll just take the second group that got in there and move them to the right folder. Another option, if you're dealing with mistakes where you record somebody to the wrong folder, then you can just edit the tab delimited file later. For example, if I have a slot for intermission in my schedule and I forget to create two folders ahead, then I have shot the group into the intermission slot, and I need to go back and fix that in the file. And then after the shoot, we're going to ingest the photos into Photomechanic using the folder number file. We're going to cull and crop, and then we're going to import that into Lightroom Classic and apply a develop preset on import. We're going to go through each group, address any more complicated edits, finalize selections, export with an export preset for sending to your publications or social media. So my objectives with this workflow are to import everything to the correctly named folder in the right location. So Lightroom Classic, if you import, there's a bunch of different options, but I think the default one, or at least the one I always use, is there's a year, 4-digit year, and then underneath of that, there's a folder for the specific day, year dash month dash day. But I always add the location to the end, so that when I'm looking at things in Lightroom Classic, I'm able to easily identify the folder because I don't necessarily remember which day Allentown was last year, but if it says dash Allentown, then I know that's the right folder. I want to keyword all of the groups, so every group is going to have its own keyword value, so that I'll see that in Lightroom. We're going to add metadata such as the location, the photographer information, copyright information. We're going to put the group name in the caption, and the reason I'm going to do this is it facilitates exporting from Lightroom, where we can use an export preset and create a file name for that export. We also are going to use a plugin to Lightroom Classic to put the caption on the photo, so that way the group name will appear on the photo. We're going to then identify the photos to submit to a publication, for example, social media, whatever your different purposes are for these photos. Ultimately, you're going to be selling them. You want to call out the photos that are bad that you don't want to sell. So we're going to identify those photos to delete. We're also going to identify photos that will require some extra editing, more than we can do in Photomechanic. Photomechanic, basically, we can flag things with a value, a label, and then we can crop, and that's pretty much it. So all of the other editing, we need to clone something out, or we need to adjust exposure, or something like that, then we're going to want to identify which ones need extra attention. And we'll crop in Photomechanic. So I'm going to show you actually this all in progress. Let's start with yesterday I shot the DCI Open Class World Championship prelims. And so this is what my file is going to look like. I have my event location, my event city, state, and the circuit. So all of that will go into different places in my metadata. And then I have my folder numbers, 101 to 115. Now, there really weren't awards, and I didn't actually photograph scores, so these really are unnecessary. But the mistake I made is I forgot I was on folder 107. I did the Colt Cadets, and then I advanced the folder number, and then I forgot because we had a rain delay. Things got kind of a little squirrely there. So River City Rhythm ended up in folder 108. Nothing ended up in 109. And then the Colombians, I got back on track for 110. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this to there. It doesn't matter if it's also in 109. That will cause a problem because there's no photos there. So now I have my import the way that I need it. And I'll show later about how we can create that. So you can see here, this is in pictures on my computer. So I've got Drum Corps 2024, I've got 2024, and then I've got each of the shows that are still on my C drive, have moved someplace else. And you can see that the name of the file has the location afterwards. What's important to me about adding the location right off the bat, rather than importing like Lightroom does into the folder without the extension, is that my backup software kicks in right away. And so I start backing up my photos at 24-08-02. And then when I rename it, first of all, if it's still backing up, I have to stop the backup software and rename it. But otherwise, if it hasn't, and rename it, then it's going to back up the photos all over again. So I end up with 2 copies in my backup. So by downloading it into the correctly named folder right from the get-go, I don't have to worry about going back and changing the folder name and getting multiple copies of things in my backup. All right, so with that, what we're going to do, the file that we were looking at before, that's called hot code file. Now we're going to go into settings, set code replacements. We're going to remove Allentown, and then we're going to add open class prelims. And that's all we need to do. Now you can have multiple code replacement files. And I do this when I'm shooting with multiple photographers. So I'll have, I've got photographer folder, and it can identify each person by the brand of their camera, the lens maybe that they're using, basically any of the metadata that gets captured, including the serial number of their camera. So if you've got everybody shooting Sony, then Make won't do it for you. You'd have to get everybody's camera serial number. But it's pretty easy to do to add all that in there. So that's all we need to do with this. We've got that in there. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a Control G or go to ingest from the menu. Control G is the easiest way to do it. And so this pops up. So first thing is we've got our primary destination that gets set here. And so this is going to go right in here in Pictures Drum Corps 2024. So we're going to make a folder inside of that. We could, if we wanted to back up to a secondary location, let's say we have an external USB drive, and we wanted to pull things over there and copy them. So now we've got 2 copies on our computer, one on an external drive, one on an internal drive. We're going to import from the SD card, okay, which is drive F here. We're going to do an incremental ingest, so only new photos are going to come in. We're not going to do the catalog. I'll talk about catalogs at some other point. So we don't care about the source structure. Everything is just going to go into the destination. We're going to name the folder the variable headline, and I'll show you that in just a second. But it's important to do this as variable. Everything in the squiggly brackets is a variable. Over here, we're going to do both raw and non-raw. I generally always shooting JPEG, so it's kind of irrelevant for me. But and then we're going to apply a metadata template to the photos. And so I'll show you that template in just a bit. And then we're going to rename it to the prefix, the prefix that my camera already was using. And the reason I use the prefix first is that I like to be able to tell just from the file name which camera I use. So every one of my cameras has a custom 3-letter prefix. So A1A and A1B are my two Sony A1s, the A and B cameras. So I know immediately looking at that which camera I took it with. And then, my other cameras, it's the same thing. 3 letters will tell me which camera I'm using. And then we're going to put the folder number in there. So it'll be A1A 101 underline, and then whatever the frame number is. So we'll just keep the existing frame number from the photo. All right, we're going to unmount the source disk after ingest so that we can remove the card. Open the contact sheet so we'll be able to see the photos. We do not want to erase the source disk after ingest. I don't know why that's even an option. So here, this is going to show you where it's going to go. So into this exact location. All right, so now let's go take a look at this metadata template. So when we pull it up, you can see this is still set for Allentown, even though we had removed Allentown. The reason is that these variables here, these location variables, those come from back over here. These just mapping, they have nothing to do with folders or anything like that. And once these go in, they get set. So what we're going to need to do is reload this template. And so I've got 2 templates I've created for ingesting. One is for my main one that I do almost all the time. It's just me shooting. And then I've got another one for multi-photographer, which is pretty similar, but a little bit different. All right, so now that's all updated. So now we know that we're in the right, we've loaded the right thing. And now we can see here the square brackets. This is the things that are coming out of the hot code file. So group name, we go back over here. So we've got group name. Group name from group city state at event, on date, competing in group class at group time. So if we had the group class, this was sound sport, these were all open class, I could fill those in if I wanted to. This is important when I do like indoor, where I want to keep track of the Scholastic A's from the regional A's from the worlds and opens. I like recording what time they were scheduled. Obviously, it's not necessarily when they performed. And picking up the group city state, if I can do that, if I can pull that from the schedule, I do, and I fill it in. This is just alt text that would, by default, when you export the files, would show up as text for screen readers. So it helps get that in there. The headline. So this is where we are going to create our folder name. So the date sort dash is going to be the year, month, day format, dash location. So I'll pull the location, which is Marion. And then group part, this in square brackets means it's coming from here. If I had an event, let's say I've got like an all-day event, and I want, maybe there's like 2 sets of awards. So you've got a big, long championship day, or maybe you got prelims finals. And so you want to have those in separate folders. Then you can put all of the ones for prelims, you say prelims, all the ones for finals, you say finals. And so you can have those go to separate places. Generally, I leave that blank, and so it's blank, nothing will happen. So you just will get your date dash location. When I do a multi-photographer, I put the photographer initials in there so that I can create everybody's folder, everybody's photos go to a separate place. And then I also put the group name in the keyword. ITPC scene, I put my circuit down there. And then we can see other information I'm going to add. I've got the year and my name for the copyright, my name, and let's see if there's anything else. Yeah, my contact information and so forth. So that is everything that's going to be in this template. We're going to close the template. And so all of that generally would happen all pretty quickly. Once I'm in a season, I'm going to be importing to the same place. I generally don't need to change that. All these other settings that we'll remember. And I just need to pull up the template, reload the template, and then I'm good to go. So now I just click ingest, and now it starts pulling in the photos. And it does this pretty quickly. It doesn't need to create previews or anything like that, like Lightroom does. It's not applying any presets to it. It's just pulling the photos. If you're pulling raw photos, it's going to use the embedded JPEG, so that's what you're going to see. And if you're doing JPEGs, it's just the JPEG. So this was my B camera. So this was the camera that I used for the wide angle lens. I have my 24-70 on this camera. And you can see it's kind of going through the folders 112, 113, which I think was the last one in the batch. And then there we go. Okay, so it's done ingesting that card. It pulled in 445 photos, and we can see, in our contact sheet, all the photos are here. Down to later at night, and so we've got everything we need. Now we can look and we can see here that it added. I customized this to show the group name, the caption, and also shows me the equipment that I use. So I know my lens. From this, I know which camera I had, and here are my settings for my exposure settings. So now we're going to do the same thing with the other card, and be more photos there. I won't waste your time watching this, but again, basically the same thing. We don't need to change anything. We know everything is fine because we just used it, and so we ingest. All right, I'll be back. Okay, so now we've ingested the second card, and you can see we have a total of 1,744 photos. So in the contact sheet, we can do. We wanted to zoom in. You just press the Z key to zoom, and then when you click and hold, you can zoom in and see. Am I in focus? Who's in focus? All of that. So that's kind of a nice thing. Press the Z again to get out of the zoom mode. So you can go through and you can flag things if you want to. You can also look at the individual metadata, so we can see how this all got filled out. Headline is as expected. The folder name, Eclipse from Indianapolis, Indiana, at DCI Open Class, World Championships. There we go. So we've got all that information. And everything's what we expect here. So the way that I usually go about doing, well, actually, let me go and show you this. So my culling process in Photomechanic is I work in the full screen usually. You can do a little bit in the grid, but I find it a little harder. What I have customized though are it gives you 8 hotkeys that you can use. So 1 through 8. 1 is trash, so that means that's something that I'm going to delete. 2 is things that have issues. That means something that I want to do some additional editing on in Lightroom. 3 is something that it's good enough to post. It's something I think would be a candidate to post on social media usually. Four would be it's going to be the blue label. Would be the blue label in Lightroom, which is key 9 by default in Lightroom. That's my special purpose photos. So if I know the performer, if it's a photo maybe I want to use in my article, if there's one that I want to post on my personal Facebook page, something maybe I want to use as my cover photo, something that is good, I want to be able to easily find when I get into Lightroom. I mark those blue with 4. Because you can only use 1 through 8, I use 4 for blue because 9 is the code in Lightroom for blue. And then 5, I call selected. And so this is when if I'm shooting for multiple purposes. So for this particular show, I'm shooting for Drunk World, and I'm also shooting, and I'm doing an article, and I'm shooting for DCX. So the things that might go on Facebook, that's going to be a 3. Things I'm going to use for my article are going to be a 4. And things that are going to go to Drunk World would be a 5, or potentially go. And then I have 6, 7, 8 are just the regular colors in Lightroom. So these have meaning for me. 8 is my stuff that's going to eventually post. And 7 is usually if I want to do a panorama, if I've got things. And then once I've done panoramas, I get rid of yellows. And I use yellow. Yellow is kind of a working color. And then red is something that's good, but it's not going to make the cut to post. And so I've got those available, but generally I don't. Once you're in a single full screen view of the image, C enters crop mode. And then unlike Lightroom, it just stays in crop mode. And we can just draw our crops on the screen and have that be that. I love 4:6 proportion. I want all my photos to be 4:6 proportion. I want to be sure that when I crop that I maintain that original proportion. So I have a constrained crop, but you can do unconstrained crops if there's somebody who really likes to just crop ad hoc, so to speak. You can do that as well. And then inside of when you're in the full screen, Z will toggle you into zooming, or you can just control click on a spot and it will just zoom right in. And I guess I should add one more thing here. The P key equals the preview of the crop, so we can see what it's going to look like crop. All right, so let's go give that a try. So let's go over here and we'll start with this first thing. All right, so that's a little bit crooked, I would say. So we're going to go into crop mode. When we go into crop mode, you can see here I've got it setting for constrained 6:4. And so I just draw my crop. And then I can rotate it just a little bit. Get it where I want it. And then if I hit P, I can preview my crop. I think that looks a lot better. All right, so that one's good, but I'm not really going to do anything with that one. So I can just hit the right arrow. That's a nicer looking sky. Looks pretty. Everything looks good. That might be something that I want to use like a cover photo for the event. Got the same thing. I did a camera on the ground shot. So let's kind of look at that, maybe crop that in a little bit and maybe just turn just a smidge. All right, so that looks good. And we're going to mark that with a 3 because that may go somewhere. All right, so this gentleman was the member for Weston Tours, a staff member of Weston Tours, and he sang the Canadian National Anthem. I want to use this photo or one of the photos of him. So I've got a couple of photos that are all kind of like that one. So I'm going to mark that a 4. When I hit the 4, it's going to advance to the next slide. And I just can kind of go through and say, okay, those are fine. That's kind of nice, but not the Canadian flag up there, so we'll just kind of leave that one go. All right, and then this is the person who sang the U.S. National Anthem. I like that right there. We'll get the crop, and I've got a touch screen, so I just drew that with my finger, and there we go. We've got that. Get that set. That's going to be a 4, and that's kind of nice. All right, so then drum major salute. All right, so this one that's completely out of focus. So we can see if we control click. Right, so now we're in 100% crop. Let's see, yeah, 100% zoom right here. Right, this controls our zoom level. 200%, 100%. And if I hold the space bar down, then I kind of move the photo around to, I think. It's not working right now, but control click, get you back out. So this one I'm going to delete, all right, because I missed that one. So I press 1, mark that as trash. All right, then we go to the next one. That looks good. That looks good. So I'm just doing 3s. This one I just want to fix the rotation a little bit. And with the grid, you can kind of line up to the pole there. I can double check it if I need to, but I know that that's good. All right, so that's a 3. All right, so now I got those snare drummers, but they're not really lined up very good. So they're okay shots, not a great shot. Can probably do something with it. If I want to pull somebody out, I could just pull him out. So one of the things you need to know your camera and how much you can crop. I mean, would that give me an acceptable photo? This is a 50 megapixel camera, so I know that one's actually probably going to be fine for the social media purposes. So that's a nice picture of that person. And we just go. We're just doing this process. Let's say I get to crop. If I had something like, let's say with this, I just would like to get rid of this wire up here, and I want to get rid of this bell, but I don't want to crop it out because it would just be too tight against her over here. So I would mark this one as a 2. So this would be something I can come back to, and in Lightroom I can easily just clean up that photo. And at that point, Lightroom I'll maybe straighten it out. All right, so that's the process of it. I may want to just kind of remove myself from my shadow here, but otherwise this looks like a nice photo. I'm going to make that a 2 though. Now you don't need to do every photo. If it's a photo, it's just like, that's fine. No reason to delete it. If I'm shooting the cell with indoor marching band, then I want as many photos as possible to be on the site available for sale. Unless it's just not a good photo, I'm going to keep it. And so we've got the things that are worth posting, but then we have the things that we want to be able to see, right? So we've got a difference. You need to understand the purpose that you're shooting for. Now, so I look at this photo, I think, all right, well, this one actually, this might be a good candidate for Drone for World. So I'm going to mark that one a 5. And so I'm just using the arrow key to just kind of move through. Kind of like that one of that guy, but his leg is kind of behind the front ensemble equipment there. I think that's the same person that we pulled out of the first thing. This is a much better photo of because we're not cropping that tiny little thing. So the angle looks pretty good. So I'm going to put that in there. All right, so now we've got the same photo of the same person, and we've got a little more action here to stick up in the air. So I may want to go back, press 0 to take that previous label off. Oh, let me just show this. Let's go back. Shift C clears the crop. All right. Control C copies the crop. Control V pastes the crop. So you have 2 photos in a row you want the same crop applied to, or just, they don't have to be in a row. 2 photos with the same crop, that's what you would do. All right, so this is a nice one for Drone for World. We're going to crop that. I like that we've got the eclipse fine over there. And so, really kind of nice if the S weren't there, but, I do that a little bit more. It feels like it's getting too much. All right, so we look at that and say, okay, that one looks pretty good. That's a 5. They can see here I changed my exposure. I must have felt as I was shooting this was a little bit too dark, but looking at it now, I think it looks actually pretty good. I know I'm going to be applying a developed preset on import that will actually kind of brighten this up a little bit in the dark parts. So I think that's really the better photo than this one, even though that one looks kind of nice too. All right, so then I started taking some individual tuba shots. It's like we go here, we got this person. They're kind of nice. All right, not exactly blowing on the instrument, just about to, so it's not as good. Didn't stay with them long enough. All right, so that's the idea. We're going to go through, and I'm not going to make you watch all of these edits, but that's the basic process. And so I'm going to go do all of that, and I will get back to you. Bye. Okay, so I'm done the culling process and come back to the contact sheet. So what we want to do now is start up Lightroom Classic. And what we're going to do is we're going to import the photos into Lightroom. Okay, so I've finished going through the culling of the photos, and what we're going to do just talk a little bit more about the photo mechanics side of things. Some different thoughts about the culling. You can use both color labels, color to text labels, which is what I use, or you can use star ratings, or you can use both. You can have one or the other be the default. So when you press a 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's going to do either labels or numbers, stars. But if you work like the way I have things set up, where it's based on color labels, you can use Alt and the number, and that will set the star rating. If you start to create a crop and you don't like it, and you want to start over again, Control Z or undo doesn't work. So you have to clear the crop and reapply it. So Shift C will clear the crop. Control C copies the crop. Control V pastes the crop over to the new photo, and just a simple C puts you into crop mode or toggles you out. In addition to the labels and the star rating, you also have what are called tags. So this is a binary choice. Something could be tagged or untagged. T does the toggle between the two. So if you have, where I use this, you have some photos that need to get into Lightroom Classic before you're finished all your culling. So for example, you wanted to just get all the award photos in there, so they have to get out soon. So you tag all those, you select just the tagged photos in Photo Mechanic, and you're going to copy those over. Then you come back, you switch to untagged, and you go through the rest of your culling now on the rest of the photos. If you shoot RAW and JPEG, they're going to appear as a stack in Photo Mechanic. So you'll have both kind of together as if they were one photo. Any labels you apply, any cropping you apply, all of that will apply to both the RAW and JPEG. Even if they're different sizes. So in the rare situations where I shoot RAW plus JPEG, it's usually because I'm shooting black and white JPEG, but I just want, just in case, a backup color version. So I will shoot the RAW to be like a small, RAW file. So even though they're different sizes, the crop will apply to both of them, which I think is very cool. There's a setting in Lightroom Classic that you have to change so that when you import, they will both import. I forget what that setting is, but it's not that hard to Google. And if your metadata is wrong, you're going through the photos, if you press the I key, that'll open up an info tab and you can edit the metadata. Or if you highlight multiple photos and do a control I, you can change all of them. So if you had the keyword was just wrong for a whole bunch, you can do that. When you do that control I, it opens up a dialog and you can control which data items you're going to modify. So I would uncheck everything, just check the data items you need to modify, put in the correct value, and then apply it to all photos. So once we have everything done on the photo mechanics side, we're going to go into Lightroom. We're going to import by selecting all of the photos in Photo Mechanic and dragging them into Lightroom Classic. We're going to make sure there's no metadata set, that we're going to have our develop preset set, and we're just doing a simple import add of that folder. And you could just do that without this drag and drop, aspect as well. Cropping instructions are retained. What that means is that we would be able to modify our crop to crop out more versus rather than just in more. So it's not a destructive crop. We are going to work with our metadata filter and do we're going to set the flag so we can mark things rejected. We are going to have a keyword, our label in there so we can drill down. Anything that we're going to delete, we're going to use an X to mark that as rejected. So we pull our trash ones and mark those. We're going to edit any issues, and then we're going to assess where we are, how many things we have to post, how many things we have for publication. Once we've got everything finalized in different batches, we're going to export with a preset for the name so that we have the properly named file. And if we're exporting for social media, we can use LR Modify, which will take the caption and some other text and put that on the photo. We can also add our watermark on export for those. And then I use collections to track what went where. So what things were sent to, in this case, Trump for World for general purposes, what photos were used for my article, what photos were on the DCX, Facebook, and so forth. So collections become very, very helpful for that. So let's go into Photo Mechanic. We're going to select all, and then we are going to drag this down to here, over to Lightroom, and let go. And this will open up the import dialog. And you'll see on the left, our source is going to be that folder that the photos were in. All the photos will be selected because we've selected them all. But if we had filtered, if we have, let's say, tagged some photos and we're just viewing the tagged photos, or we can also filter in Photo Mechanic by any of the color labels that we used or star ratings. So if we're only pulling some photos in, then all the photos will still appear here, but they will be unchecked if they were not selected on the Photo Mechanic side. We're doing an add. During import, we're not going to do anything with the files other than build our standard previews. We're not going to pull any duplicates. So if we had already pulled photos in, we're not going to pull them in again. And then I have a default preset that I use for my develop preset that generally works pretty well for me. And then I want to make sure that my metadata is set to none. So now at this point, we're going to hit import and things will start to import. Now this is where things will take some time because it's going to import 1,744 photos. And then it's going to go through and apply the develop presets to that. So this is, given that it's 12:11, it's a good time for me to go get lunch. And when I come back, this will all be done, and we can go to the next step. So now I'm back for lunch, where I happen to run into some Blue Devil B parents, which was fun. But anyway, we have our photos are in Lightroom. Everything, the previews have all been generated. And this is my standard metadata filter. So you can create filters over here. I call this one rejected filter. And what I do is I usually have it on unflagged. I can then check my keywords. So if I want to, just say look at Rhythm City Rhythm, I can see, all right, these are my blues, my selecteds, my to posts, trash, and and things that have no label. Or I can pick all keywords and I can say, well, let me look at all my photos to post. And that number didn't, oh, no, sorry, selected, all right, to post. And then I can see, how many photos I have for each group that I thought were good enough. And, that one stands out clips, but they were sound sport. So, all of that looks fine. So usually the first thing I do when I come in here is I go to trash and select all and then press X, which marks them as rejected. It'll keep them in here until I go back and do a control backspace and delete all rejected photos. And I do that periodically throughout the season. But I like to keep them around just in case. Sometimes I might need a texture for a composite, or somebody might be looking for, did you have a photo of my kid? They're the third base drum, or even if it's blurry, I want to see it, sort of thing. And so you go back through your deleted photos. But eventually, they will get deleted. So the thing here would now be, I'm going to focus on Drum Corps World. So would be to work on these selecteds. Now, because the text labels are not something you can assign in Lightroom, what I usually do is convert these to yellow. So select all 7. And so now I've got my yellows. And now I'm going to go through each core and I'm going to look at my yellows and say, are these good? I'm sorry. Before I do this, I usually go through and do my issues. So I've got 16 photos that I wanted to do something to, whether it's check exposure or clone something out. So like in this case, I want to get rid of that little bit of tuba bell that's in there. So we can use, for this, we probably could just use a regular healing brush and not the AI. All right, let me try that again. Okay, so that looks good. Get rid of that, and I think this here is fine. So that's good now. So I'm going to change that to an 8, which is my to post. All right, so this one I wanted to get rid of my shadow. And that looks good. All right, and so that might be a candidate to send to Drum Corps World. So I'm going to make that yellow. I'm going to do the same thing with this one, and so forth. So you go through each of the photos, figure out what edits you might need to do, and reassign them to one of the other buckets. This one here, I think I was probably concerned about highlights a little bit, so I'm going to pull those down, and that looks good otherwise. So make that possible Drum Corps World. This one, because of the way the background is here, I want to use a little bit of a different look, but it's not particularly a great photo, so I'm going to make that a 6, which is just to kind of get it out of the list. The same edits that I just did, I probably want to do here, and lower my contrast, and then just R for crop, go to the crop tool, and just crop that a little bit more. And that might be a candidate to post. Anyway, you continue through the process. I'm not going to go through all of this right now. So then, when we would go through and say I'm going to do my selected, so I pick 7th Regiment, and my yellows, and I've got 3. I want to have like 5 or 6. So now I can either go through these ones here, which I thought were good, or I go through other ones that I was kind of indeterminate about, and see if there's something here that kind of grabs me as being something that would work for the magazine. I kind of like this one if I crop it a little bit differently. So just see if I can get the crop kind of where I kind of wanted to get 7th Regiment in the thing there. And then I also, I don't like the hand there. So kind of like this better. That's saying 7th Regiment. So that looks good. So that would be another candidate. Back to the grid with the G key. And I've got to go check and see what were my yellows again. All right, so I don't have any bass drum for my yellows, so or tenors. Let me do these 2 tenors, and that basically looks okay. I think I like the flags in the background, and so now I've got 5. So I would do this process for for all of the 4s, and then I would pick all. I'd pick yellow. I would at this point have all the 4s. I'm just going to do 7th Regiment for right now. And then so I would select my photos that I'm going to send to Drum Corps World, and I'm going to go into File, and I'm going to do Export with Preset Drum Corps World, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm just going to go into Export. I'm going to pick Drum Corps World. So I'm going to send these to Pictures, DCW, Photos. I'm going to rename them using this rename preset for Drum Corps World, which I'll show you in just a sec. So the name is going to be the caption, a sequence number, which is the month, day, and year. Month, day, and then sequence, and then the year, the 2-digit year, and my name. So this is the basic format that that Drum Corps World uses. So the way I do this is if we click here and say Edit. So caption dash title. So what this allows me to do is if I wanted to put something else in there to communicate to the publisher, some other information, I could put that in the title. And then the £, the month, and the day right next to each other, and then the sequence, a 3-digit sequence with leading zeros, and then the year, 2-digit year, and then CMAR, which is my name. So you can insert different items in here from the metadata, from sequence, from the imaging name. And then once you have this, then you can save it as a preset, which then you can use here in your export preset. I set my export long edge to 3000, max resolution 300. I keep my location data in there, and then I would export this out, and now I would have photos that will always have the right name. And now let's say I was looking at the stuff that was for social media, and that would be the stuff that eventually to post. These are all going to become greens for me. And I'm going to narrow down my greens to the ones I'm going to post. But let's say these are the photos. When I go in to do that, I would do export with preset. And let's do the Drum Corps World Mogrify. So this would be the preset that I would use, but I'll show you what that looks like. So this is going to go to a different folder. It's going to go to the Facebook folder. Long edge is still 320 and 3000, resolution 320. But then here's the additional information. So I also add a watermark, which is my logo. And then I've added this program. It's a plugin called LR Mogrify. And there are different things you can do with it, but I do text annotations are the main thing. So what that is right here is I'm going to put the caption, and I'm going to say Drum Corps World in the year. And this will show up on the photo, 24 pixels, and it shows you there'll be a little bit of background, there'll be a little like grayish color, white text, and so you can define whatever you want, and it's going to go in the lower right and decide the position. So when I export, I'll have my logo on the one side, and I'll have this other information on the other side. So you'd have to buy and configure LR Mogrify, but it's not that difficult to do. Now, while I'm in here, let me just show you one other thing. I have this sort of generic Mogrify ITPC scene. What I do with the ITPC scene is I put the circuit in there, and the reason is that when I'm selling photos. This is the URL I want, photos.coreapps.com/scene, which would be, WGI, say, and then the year, 2024. So that would be the URL that would get you to the ballpark of where this photo would be posted and available for sale. So I can make this all just very generic by having the scene come as one of the things that goes into my metadata, and then the year just automatically gets picked up. And so most of the time, when I'm posting photos that are going someplace for advertisement, essentially, of the photos being available for sale, social media for my circuits, that's the export preset that I would use. So export preset is very, very useful to maintain consistency in your naming and your sizing and all of that, and it works really well for sending stuff to Drunk World, as well as other sorts of places. So again, I'm not going to do this right now, but you would go through, all of your stuff, kind of narrow it down to your 5 or 6 or 7 photos that you're going to send off to Drunk World, 20 or so photos per group that you're going to post on social media, and then export those and send those out via WeTransfer, and then we're done. The other thing I'll do is, once I've got these photos identified, I come over here and I go to my collections, and I make collections for everything. Let's say these were going to Drunk World, then I would right click here, say create collection, and then I would call it open class prelims, and then all of that would go in there. Also, if I had, since I'm writing this show, the photos that I would use for my article, I would put those in a collection down here and say open class prelims article. So I differentiate between show and articles. This way I know everything that went to the magazine, which would be all of these photos. So this is everything that went to the magazine. The other thing I do is, after I've put it over there, I clear my yellow and change the yellow to purple. So that way it kind of is out of the way. Change them to the purple, photo, set color label, purple. So that's all involved there. So that's the process, the workflow. I'm going to talk about a few more things as I continue here. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to cover just a couple more things. I have gone through and picked my 5 per group for to go to Drunk World. But let's I'm going to do this export. So file, export, preset, Drunk World. And while that's exporting, I'm going to show you this. So I have a utility to create a batch file that will sort the groups, these pictures, into folders. And so you're going to go into Lightroom Classic, you're going to pick your, you're going to select all photos that are exporting. We're going to copy the keywords that are represented in that batch of photos to the clipboard, and then we're going to go to this URL, coreapps.com/zenfoliobatch.cfm. You're going to paste in your keywords, and depending on what you're naming of the files, you're probably going to just clear the underline delimiter, and then you're going to take the result from that and paste it in a command prompt window and make folders by keyword and copy the photos in there. So let's let it. Looks like it's still working on the export. But anyway, while that's going on, we can come over here, Control A, select all, Control C, copy. You can see it's the keyword name, an asterisk, and the comma. This means that the asterisk means that not every photo is systemic threaded, which is exactly what we want. So then we would go to this URL. We're going to paste in the keyword list, clear delimiter, and the delimiter is, I have a different format that I use when I upload things to Zenfolio to sell, where after the name of the group, I have an underline, have the location in the photo name, and it works better when that's unchecked. But for this case, it will work. It needs to be checked. So now we get this batch file. It's going to make a directory for everything, including a directory for other, in case we had other photos that did not have a keyword. And then it's going to move everything in there. You can see the way that the move works. It relies on this wildcard. And this is where things can kind of get a little bit dicey if you have, you know, the cult cadets aren't the same as the cults. And there's no confusion there. But if we had Caballeros and Caballeros alumni, Caballeros star and would pick up all the alumni. So you just have to be careful about the order. You need to move the order around a bit. But it's only if the names are essentially substantially similar. So we're going to copy this, and then we're going to go to here's my photos, and so I'm going to paste. There's nothing in other, so I can get rid of that directory. And now I have each of the photos are in separate folders. This is not something I would do for Drum Corps World, but it is something that can be part of my workflow depending on how I'm uploading things to Facebook. So I just wanted to let you know about this utility that I have. And then the other thing is how you create those hot code files. If you remember, code replacement files require they get created in a certain way. So we remind you what those look like. We've got our folder numbers and all that, group name, all this information. So I have a utility that I created that's at coreops.com/pmtemplate.cfm. And what we're going to need, there's two ways we can do this. If your keywords are very particular, and this is definitely the case for my marching band and indoor stuff, because like with indoor, the schedule might just simply say, the name of the high school, and but I need to know whether it's guard or drumline. I need to know that that's part of the keyword. Or I wouldn't usually say Pencrest High School Band. I would just say Pencrest. And so my keywords are different from what would be on the schedule. For Drum Corps, that's not the case. But let's just say it is. So what we do is we're going to export our keywords, export keywords, and we're going to do that as the excluding keyword tag options. And we'll stick it here. This is a good place as any. All right, so then it's going to go into a text editor. And there's all my Lightword keywords. I'm going to come over here now and paste that in. So I've got my keywords. So we're going to show you two different ways. So if I go here and I grab this URL for the schedule, paste that in here, pick DCI as the format. For now, I'm going to show you how it works with the keywords. So I'm going to leave that unchecked, and we're not doing manual entry. One of the options up here was to do manual entry. If you do manual entry, you can say how many rows you want. So you say go. And so national anthem, I'm going to just start typing in and so forth. So we can do all of that. You can see that sometimes it does kind of pick up some extra nonsense that that we don't want, like it did here. But basically, you can see that that's all that happens after the last group. So we'll be able to just ignore it. But let's just try. This is the way I would normally do it for Drum Corps. So paste in my URL, DCI. And then I'm going to just do this, set the keyword to the group name because DCI is consistent in their namings of the groups, and I'm just going to adopt the way that they name everybody. So now we've got it all set. There's this is going to be our keyword. The only thing I don't like is the quotes around B, and the circuit DCI. Right, so I have it set to the default starting folder as 101. Your camera would probably have 100 as the first folder. So if it gives you 100, that's not going to be associated with any keywords, which allows you to do, environmental shots, whatever, and that won't get a keyword. Because I'm going to use the same cards I used yesterday. Yesterday, I was up through folder 113. So I'm going to change this to be 115. So that gives me 114 as my environmental folder number. And then 115 is where the groups would start. And then we hit go. And then, so this makes our file. So, so we're going to paste this in here, and then we just need to, this really got messed up. All right. I have to figure out what's wrong. Right. This might be easier. You just save that. It might be easier to do this in Excel. It's the first this has happened. Of course, this always happens when you're doing something like this. Open finals. All right. So yeah, everything got just totally whacked out because of whatever nonsense it started picking up over here. Marching Music Major League. So there must be something different about that folder than was different about the one for prelims, because the one for prelims worked fine. Okay, so I figured out the problem. The issue had to do with the finals. Instead of ending with scores announced, it ends with the words award ceremony. So with that change, so we're pasting in our URL. We pick DCI as our option. We're going to leave the keywords blank and use the group name as the keyword. So we get everything the way that we want it here, change our BDB, get rid of the quotes. We have award ceremony, circuit DCI. And because we were up to 113 on those cards, we use the same cards. We're going to start at 115. And we say go. And then, so now we have this nice tab to limited output. So let's go and save it on my computer as a tab delimited text file. And let's go and just look at it in Excel so you can see the tab columns a little bit better. All right, so open finals, tab delimited. All right, so we now have our group names, where they're from. Class is, we're going to leave that blank. Department will be blank. We've got our time there. We can get rid of this line. We don't need it. And we can save that. So if there's anything we needed to adjust in here, we could do that in Excel. It becomes easy to do that. So the other thing is that you can then print this out and you'd have your schedule with all of the times and so forth, and your folder numbers and your groups to be able to track that you're on target with your with your shooting. So that is how you would create those files. And then again, we'll go back to Photo Mechanic and we pull it in, set hot codes, and go from there. Or set code replacement, I guess is the actual word that they use there. So that's the basic flow. I don't think there's anything else that I had to add. So hopefully that'll give you some insight into the workflow. And oh, I know I'm gonna add another video where I'm going to talk about the customization of Photo Mechanic and a little bit more about setting it up. But I'm not going to do that today. So I think that's it for now.
So I'm going to cover a few more things about Photo Mechanic. In the contact sheet, one of the things you can do is change the sort. I usually do it by capture time, but sometimes there are reasons that I want to do by file name, which for me, since I customize the names of my cameras, we'll put the cameras together, or I could customize it by other characteristics. You can also choose whether you want to see all photos or tagged photos or untagged photos or photos that are selected. So you have that option there. Sometimes when I'm looking for awards photos or something like that, I just want to get my Drum Corps World photos out quickly. I'll go through, I'll tag a bunch of photos, filter down to tag, pull those into Lightroom, come back here, switch from tag to untagged, go through all the rest of the photos, and then pull those into Lightroom. So tagging is a way that can be easily done. You click the little box here to tag something, and or you press the T key to toggle the tag. And here you can change your sorting if you want to sort, by different star ratings or by different colors or different groups of colors. You can do that as well. So it just kind of will select if you just want to see the ones that you selected, let's say for trash. I think we do a shift click to do that. Shift click takes it off. If we just click it, then it takes those out of the mix, and that puts it back. Clicking it puts it back on. So shift click to select only one color. All right, so I want to go through some of the customization that I do. If you go into Edit, Preferences, on General, I kind of go back and forth between whether I prefer to do nothing on startup or to show the last session. I think I've mostly been using it this way. This is one of the main things that I've customized. So the word labels are what will come into Lightroom. If the word that you use is a color that Lightroom recognizes, so one of the 5 colors that Lightroom recognizes, it will tag it with that color. But otherwise, it will just have the word label. So I've got 1 trash, 2 issues, 3 to post. These colors don't have any meaning other than you'll see these colors in your Photo Mechanic. So it's easier to kind of tell if something's been selected for one reason or another. Then I've got my blue because there is no 9 would be blue in Lightroom. There is no 9 key, so I like to use blue for certain purposes. 5 is going to give me selected, and then 6, 7, and 8 are just my Lightroom colors, red, yellow, and green. So that gives me everything, pretty much that I need there. On the contact sheet, I think these are all defaults. Oh, no, this is not over here. So what I do in the contact sheet, I show the name plus 3 labels. I show the caption, the lens information, and then the basic exposure stuff. So you can see that here. I've got my file name, which is kind of a given, I guess. That's the name plus 3. So that's my name, my caption. That's going to be my core name or band name or whatever. My lens, and then my basic aperture information. So I did make that change. Files, I think I left this all as is. I don't think there are any changes here, but you can see how I have it set up. Launching, this is for dealing with an external editor, which generally I don't find much value in that. So I don't have anything. I don't think I kept these all at the default. IPTC and XMP. I think these all are the default as well. So yeah, I think those are all the default. Preview, this I think is all default, but you can see what I have here. Render caching and render cache, those were all the default. Color management, I believe, is all default. GPS and accessibility, those are all default. So those are the main things. Main things really is this right here. This is the biggest thing that I changed. Okay. I did make some other changes in the metadata, and I don't actually remember where you do that. If you go into the info on a photo, we don't see all of all of the possible fields, just the ones I generally use, and there is a way to customize that. I did want to mention about that there. In addition to, there's Photomechanic and there's also Photomechanic Plus. The difference is that you get a catalog. And so the catalog, you see this under the organizer, and I've got, separate catalogs for drum corps, marching band, and indoor. You can decide which ones you want to see and search. You can browse through them and do all sorts of things. So I exported all of my library as finished JPEGs. And then I got rid of basically all the originals and the Lightroom catalog so that everything is all kind of in one place. So that is something you want to look at the Plus. That's what you get with the Plus that you don't get with regular Photomechanic. All right. So in preferences, back over here to in preferences, accessibility. There actually is something to change here, and that's the metadata info and metadata templates. So this is giving you, this is all the information for which items you have enabled, and it also tells you, what those, all of the different fields are, what they're for. And so I do remove things I don't use, and then the metadata template. Here again, you can decide in what goes in column 1, what goes in column 2, how you lay things out, and you can decide what you want to turn on and what you don't want to turn on. So I have a lot of things that I took out that I don't use in both of these. So all of these things here, personality and different other group labels and so forth. So that's where you would make that change. I want to talk about if you have a card that you've used before, you need to understand what your camera is going to do when you start shooting with this. If you have two cards and you add a card that has a folder number that is lower than the folder number that you're on currently, when you take a picture, will it create a whole new folder on both cards, or will it just bring the second card or the older replacement card up to the same level as whatever your current folder number is? So you want to try to understand how your camera is going to manage those folder numbers. If you know that you're going to be using, let's say, the cards today that you used yesterday, then when you create your folder mapping, just start it at some number higher than the last number that you used yesterday. So that's easy if the two cards stay the same. But if, let's say, you have one big capacity card, a 256 megabyte, and then maybe you got 64s, you put the 64 in, and then the next day, you're going to put another 64 in. What you want to do is be sure when you put that in, when you take a picture, it's probably going to create a folder number equal to or one more than your current folder number on your 256 megabyte card. And so, you want to understand that. That's another reason why I always leave, kind of a gap between days. I realized I needed to explain a little bit more about this IPTC metadata template. So there's two different kinds of, three actually, I guess, three different kinds of variables that can show up in here. The square brackets are things that come out of your hot code file. These are hot codes. But you also can have these replacement codes. And when you use those, it's equal, the name of the variable, and then an equal. And these correspond to in your template file you have, if you remember, if you go back and look at the EV and eCity and so forth for the different event variables. If those variables exist and there's a corresponding template and you put those variables in, the value will just appear. So what you need to do is to make sure that there's no hot codes file selected, and then you can properly create this template. So you would use the equal signs here around each of these variables. You would set everything else the way that it was when we looked at it before. So your group name in square brackets, anything in the squiggly brackets, that's data coming out of the file, metadata coming out of the file. Once you have all of this set, then you can do a save, and you can save that. And that's what my main ingest metadata is here, is what we've got up right now. So once you save that template, then after that, you can load and reload and so forth with the load button, the way that we looked at. But it's important that your starting point use these code replacement syntax of the equal variable. So you can see if we let's close out of this. If we go into the preferences, or rather in settings, set code replacements. If we were now to go add something in here, all age, let's say, for example. So now we've got these in here. Let's just take a look at what this looks like. Select it, hit edit. So EV and then DCI all age and new location, Indianapolis, and so forth. So these are the code replacements, and these are the hot codes down here. All right. Just while I'm here, also this is what's telling us it's going to be folder number, and then this is essentially a comment. This gives us all our column names, and then we're sorting on folder number. We can have multiple of these code replacements, like if we're doing photographer or something like that. But when you do that, the syntax of using them is a little bit more involved. You have to name each one. You have to give each hot code area a name, and then you have to reference that name. All right. So out of that, so let's go back now into the ingest dialog and look at the metadata template now. And when we do that, you can see that it filled in those variables from the currently active hot codes file, replacement code file. So that's why, in order to get it back to what we want, we would need to reload if this is not actually the show that we're shooting. So I think that was what I needed to explain on that piece. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that when you generate your schedule with my utility, and then you could pull it up in Excel, you could print that out to a PDF, convert that PDF to a JPEG, and then you can use Lightroom, not Lightroom Classic, but Lightroom as a way to get that easily to your phone. You just copy it to the cloud with Lightroom, and then copy it back to your phone with Lightroom Mobile on your phone. So that's something that I've been doing the last few shows because I wasn't able to print out my schedule in advance, and it actually worked out really well because I don't have to run back to some place where my printout would be. It's just right there on my phone, and I just pull it up in the gallery then on my phone. So hopefully all of those things that I've talked about will make sense. Will give you a good sense of the workflow, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions.